So as always, if anybody has anything that they'd like addressed in the class, you're welcome to type it into the chat box and we will work it in. Otherwise, I'm sure a few more people will probably roll in the next 5 minutes. But for now, let's just arrive. You're here. You've come to attend a meditation class. You're sitting in a room, and your senses are perceiving that room. Your eyes are seeing shapes, your ears are hearing sounds, your skin is feeling temperature. Oh, sorry. Let me fix that. Thanks, Anna. So your body's feeling all of these things and seeing all of these things, but you're not seeing them cleanly. You're seeing them with your life story laced all over them. And so there's all this meaning that you're attaching to things. And that system of meaning that you're lacing over all of those things is just keeping you from experiencing them on their own terms. We always think we're at the whim of life's terms, but we're not. Those of you who have been coming to this class for a long time have seen it. You know, those moments where where all of a sudden you're out of the story and you're just in a comfortable space. You're not hard focusing on any one thing, you're just awake, present, and free. What's changed in that moment? Nothing. The same room, the same people storing the same karma for you. You're in the same body, you have the same job, the same families, the same bank accounts. Only you experience this lifting and this freedom. And what changed was you. What changed was how you're using your attention. You know, today I had a very busy day. I went to an internship and then I came home and started working on my upcoming job. And I have been doing that every day in one form or another and every weekend for a few weeks now, and that's going to go on for a while. You know, I come to a class like this where my attention has been focused here, focused here, focused here, working with stories. And these stories aren't even as interesting as my story. These stories are statistical analyses and putting together coursework, so pedagogy and just figuring all these different things out, putting things in their right place. Tight little stories. And I come here and I sit down and I have to let it all go. How do we do that? The way I've been showing you for however long you've been here. You shift your attention first off of it. We choose the forehead and crown, and you just watch something simple, one thing. We pick the breath in this class, but it can be anything. It's just when you're stuck in the story, when you're stuck in the mind, the way that you stay stuck is the mind, makes you flip from one view to another view to another view to another view. And that movement is what actually creates the illusion of realness to the story. Think about a film projector. I don't know what they do anymore now that everything's digital, but probably still similar. They take one still picture that if you were to look at it would not look alive. It wouldn't look like anything that real. It would just look like someone snapped a shot of something at one point in time. But because you're moving from frame to frame to frame to frame to frame, you can create something that carries all the emotion and feeling of life. You can create something that can captivate the attention, and for a while, you can live out some other character's life vicariously. Have all the feelings that they have. You watch the wrong movie, you watch a scary movie, and it's so captivating that you can spend the rest of the night thinking that every little sound you hear in your house is, something predicting your demise. It's powerful. It's a spell. The media controls the world. McDonald's have been controlling us through beautiful commercials for as long as I've been alive. It's a spell. And they know how to use it to get your money, but you use it on yourself. Constant shifts in the attention. We live in a story. We live in a web of algorithms of shifting attention. And they create a feeling of an experience of feeling that is transferable to others because we can relate to each other. We take on each other's algorithms and patterns. But all of that is an illusion of shifting attention. How do you know that? Because when someone like me comes and says, okay, place your attention here, and I'll give you some place to place your attention, and I'll have you systematically let go of everything other than that, suddenly all the problems that were problems lift off of you. And then I often, in some classes, will then have you, with that clarity, step back into some of the things that were stressful for you. Only be there wide open, not with a shifting attention, just acting and reacting and reacting and reacting. But just there, wide open, nothing to defend, nothing to protect yourself from. And what you come to see is that it's not a problem. It may be unpleasant, but it's not a problem. Unpleasant is not a problem. Does that mean you can always be in that space? I don't think so. You have to be able to interact with this world. You're here to get lost and come back, get lost and come back, get lost and come back. There's value to that. The problem is that when you don't know that the story isn't real, when you don't know that you're holding it up by constant shifts in attention and a never-ending dialogue in your head telling you where to look, when you don't know that you're doing it, you can't come back. You turn on the movie and it never stops playing. And those movies turn sour. You know, I've always had an affection for horror movies, and it's always been one of those things people raise an eyebrow at. You know, I'm a spiritual teacher who enjoys horror movies. It's because I don't see the same thing as you. And when I watch them, there's so much to see. And it's actually interesting to find the beauty in them. And then when you come out of them, you can let them go. You know, I don't sit there in horror. So you learn how to enter things and get lost in the part of them you intend to get lost in. But you don't get so lost that when it's time to come back, you can't just come back. And that's actually awakening. When people say awakening, that's what they mean. You come to know what's real and what isn't. And that doesn't mean that you shun what isn't. You're here to experience that dichotomy. This is a world of duality, of real and unreal. But when you've awakened, you can let go of the unreal whenever you need to, because you know it isn't real. If you know you're walking into something awful, knowing it doesn't make your entire heart sink. Because all awful is a series of stories and feelings. And you just enter into it and have the experience and come out. I wonder if you can sense the power in that. From the lens of the person in the story, it's a very subtle shift. It's just a small change. You're still doing most of the same things you did. But your perception of it's different now. Doesn't mean that difficult isn't difficult. But it's not you anymore. You're the one stepping into it and stepping out. So it's a subtle shift, but in a way it's a massive shift. One of the ways I've heard someone describe it once that I always thought was very apt was that the foreground becomes the background and the background becomes the foreground. You know, that backdrop of intelligent, resonant silence that you experience when you meditate. That ceases to be the backdrop. That becomes what's real. And the rest just becomes shallow movement against that backdrop. Shallow movement that everybody's engaging in, that your physical vehicle is designed to be particularly impacted by. So I say shallow, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't pack a punch. It's shallow because as soon as you shift your attention off of it, it ceases to exist. Your problems, as soon as you shift your attention off of them, they are no longer a part of your reality until you shift back, which means they have no self-existence. Something that doesn't have any self-existence disappears when you stop conjuring it into being. So meditation is the cultivation of a healthy and legitimate curiosity towards what's left when you stop holding everything up. What is self-existent? What remains? That's what meditation shows you. And that's what makes that shift where the foreground becomes the background. Where that thing that you touch into in little moments in a class like this becomes actually what you consider to be real. And the rest becomes a play of shadow and light brought about by shifts in your attention, by you becoming engrossed. And then either shifting out or staying stuck in it. Does that make sense? You can ask questions if it doesn't. But it's so foundational to everything I try and teach you guys that I feel like we need to find many different ways to say it. So that at some point we hit upon the version that just fits lock and key with your understanding. It is the fundamental realization, and you can understand it intellectually, but it's not the same as experiencing the reality of it. Meditation is what creates the visceral, multidimensional experience of that reality. All right, so let's go into that. So for anybody new here tonight, what you're going to do is you're going to place your attention up here at the center of the forehead and kind of up at the top of the head. And when we say that, I don't mean anything more esoteric than if you were to scratch this part right here and knock a little bit up there, just your awareness of that feeling that remains. That's all I mean by that. You're going to meditate with your eyes open because you live with your eyes open. So let your eyes just sort of fall to a spot on the floor, just to get them out of the way. And from there, you're just going to begin to breathe. Don't worry about breathing deeply or shallowly. Just watch the natural breath that's there. It'll deepen on its own if you do that. Nothing to make happen. Nothing to force or conjure. Nothing to learn or understand. Just the simplicity of breathing. Learning and understanding are part of the story. And we're just going to not feed that for a little while. Just the simplicity of breathing in and out. And experience every part of it. the feeling of the air, the sound of the air, the feeling of expansion on your ribs and skin, that subtle shift in clarity that happens as the oxygen enters the bloodstream. There's so much to see in the simplicity of breathing. And you don't have to think about it. Just let it strike your awareness. And pay such close attention that you even become aware of the subtle shift in between the inhale and the exhale, and in between the exhale and the inhale, that little gap of nothing space, that cliff you fall off of for a split second as you transition from one movement to the other. Notice that too. That little window is the quickest way into the meditative state. Nothing to do with it. Just be aware of it. If you do that, a part of you will naturally slip through that window. And you'll find that that vast, pregnant stillness on the other side is with you as you exhale all the way down to the next window. Just notice it. Watch it deepen. Make this your practice for a little while, and then we'll go deeper. Nothing to be. No role to play. Nothing to figure out. Nothing to achieve. No time to track. Breathe in, breathe out, and nothing else. What if you just let that be enough? Need nothing. Stop covering what is here with what you wish were here. And have this actual experience. Timelessly. Complete release to this moment. Nothing to push or pull. No battle to be won. It's okay. Stay with the breath. Return to the breath. Return to the breath. Return to the breath. Now there's an important shift that needs to happen. Some of you will have already done this naturally. But you need to take your focus on the breath out of the realm of doing and into the realm of being. What does that mean? It means you're not clinging to the breath. You've released yourself to it. It's now your home. You are a willing resident. Abide in the breath. When you do that, it frees up the rest of your awareness. When you do that, you've crossed to the other shore. And that freed up awareness can be present and awake to what is there. Nothing to think about. Just have the experience. Now, without losing that expansive, full body view of the other shore, be simultaneously aware of your physical body and the room that you're in. They are not antithetical. They refine and contain each other. Just have the experience, nothing to understand, nothing to think about. Keep the freedom of the other shore, but also be aware of form. I can feel some of you wobbling. If you're wobbling, return to the expansive. Get comfortable there, and then find your way back in and try again. It's like riding a bike. Set the form free of your stories. Let it be whatever it needs to be. That's how you find your balance between the expansive state and the world of form. Do that for everything and everyone in your life. Okay, everybody. Now I want you to come back to your normal state, but I want you to watch your mind in the process. What story catches you first? And I want you to notice how that one story lights up a bunch of others and reassembles the entire state of your personality. Maybe it won't happen right away. But those processes are important for you to pay attention to. These things that we teach, they're not dogma. They're just what's there if you pay attention. They're not there for you to take from me and turn it into a belief. It's there for you to show yourself. You can see how your mind works because you deal with your mind. Meditation asks for this shift. And if you're always in the same noise, then you don't really get to see how the mind works because that fundamental shift never happens. But in a class like this, you shift, and then you shift back. It helps you see the edges of things. And while all the things you're scared of are things that can happen in the story, the story isn't real. And so the things you're scared of aren't real either. Doesn't mean you have to go seeking suffering, but it means you should probably stop suffering over a bunch of things that are just glitches in a storyline. That part of you that you see in those little windows between the breaths, that part of you that emerges as you sit here like this, in unconditional awareness, that's what's real. That's what's left when there is no more you. And that's what you are. It can't be given to you by anybody, least of all me. It can't be taken away by anybody, least of all your boss or your spouse or your child or your job or your busyness. It's what you are. All your nightmares, it's the substance that those nightmares are built of. It's just your shifting in attention, your constant shifting that keeps you from seeing it. Stare right at any one thing, and what you'll see is the meditative state, unconditional consciousness staring right back at you. But again, don't take my word for that. Do it. You see it when you stare at your breath. Stare at anything like that, you'll see it. Are there any questions before we end the session? Okay, everybody. Well, I will be here again next Thursday, and I wish you all a good week. And this week, I think, let's focus on finding that middle space where you can be in that clarity and that expansive state, but you can also be in form so that that expansiveness has purpose. All right. Have a good night. I'll see you in a week.